On election night 2024, President Donald Trump stood before his supporters and said, quote, "I'm not going to start wars, I'm going to stop wars." 4 days ago, on February 28, 2026, that same president launched Operation Epic Fury, a massive joint U.S.-Israeli military campaign against Iran that has already killed 6 American service members in a drone strike on a makeshift operations center in Kuwait. Today, as the Dow plunges over 1,000 points and oil prices hit 19-month highs, every American household is about to feel this decision at the gas pump, at the grocery store, and in their retirement savings. But here is the question no one in Washington is answering right now. If the president's own most loyal supporters are publicly calling this war evil, who exactly is this war for? Because what is unfolding inside the MAGA movement right now may be more consequential than anything happening over Tehran. Here's what they're not telling you. This crisis did not materialize out of nowhere on February 28th. Negotiations between the United States and Iran had been underway for months in Geneva, led by White House Special Envoy Steve Witkoff on the American side and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi representing Tehran. According to the Associated Press, President Trump had set a 60-day deadline for Iran to reach a nuclear agreement, to fully dismantle its nuclear program, halt all enrichment, and end support for regional proxy groups. When that deadline passed without a deal, the strikes began. The official White House narrative, published March 1st on Frame's Operation Epic Fury as Peace Through Strength, a preemptive campaign to destroy Iran's missile capabilities, eliminate its nuclear threat, and, in the administration's own words, crush the Iranian regime. But here is the documented contradiction. According to Al Jazeera, reporting March 3, the Trump administration has offered, quote, "scant evidence on the Iranian threat" to justify the scale of this operation. Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat of Massachusetts, called the strikes, quote, "dangerous and illegal," adding that America first doesn't mean dragging the United States into another forever war built on lies while ignoring the needs of Americans here at home. The gap between what was promised and what is being delivered right now is not just a talking point, and the data proves it. The numbers don't lie. A Reuters Ipsos poll conducted February 28 through March 1 found that only 25% of Americans support the strikes on Iran, while 43% actively disapprove. Let that sink in for a moment. Just 1 in 4 Americans backs this military operation. A CNN poll released March 2 found even steeper opposition. 59% of Americans disapprove of the Iran strikes, and only 12% would support sending U.S. ground troops. A Washington Post poll conducted March 1 found that 52% of Americans oppose the strikes outright, and 2/3 say the Trump administration has not clearly explained the goals of the operation. Meanwhile, on Wall Street, the consequences are arriving in real time. Forbes reported today, March 3, that the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped 1,211 points, a 2.4% single-day decline, while the S&P 500 fell 2.4%, and the Nasdaq tumbled 2.6%. That is not an abstraction on a ticker. That is your 401k, your college fund, your retirement account bleeding value while the Strait of Hormuz faces potential closure. And those market losses may be just the opening act of something far worse. The political division inside Washington right now is something we have not seen at this scale in years, and it does not break along the lines you might expect. On one side, Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina, praised the operation, calling it, quote, "the most consequential decision any president has made since 1979, and adding, "the end of the largest state sponsor of terrorism is upon us. God bless President Trump." Senator John Fetterman, Democrat of Pennsylvania, also backed the strikes, saying Trump, quote, "has been willing to do what's right and necessary to produce real peace in the region." But on the other side, Republican Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky declared the strikes, quote, "acts of war unauthorized by Congress," and announced he is working with Democratic Representative Ro Khanna of California to force a congressional vote under the War Powers Resolution. In the Senate, Democrat Tim Kaine of Virginia and Republican Rand Paul of Kentucky have introduced a bipartisan Iran War Powers Resolution to restrict the president's authority. Paul posted on social media that he would, quote, oppose another presidential war. And House Speaker Mike Johnson, defending the president, told PBS that limiting Trump's authority with the War Powers Act is, quote, dangerous. So ask yourself again, if members of the president's own party are joining with Democrats to challenge the legal basis of this war, who is this war actually for? Because the fractures do not stop at Capitol Hill. They are ripping through the conservative media world in a way we have never seen before. And this is where it gets personal. In the immediate term, CNN reported March 2 that independent oil analyst Tom Closa expects retail gas prices to rise 5 to 10 cents per day for at least the next several days. If you are filling up a 15-gallon tank right now, you could already be paying $1.50 more per fill-up than you were last Wednesday, and that number is climbing daily. Reuters reported today that Brent crude has hit a 19-month high, and brokerage Bernstein has raised its 2026 Brent oil price assumption from $65 to $80 a barrel. But here is the projection that should concern every household in America. Bernstein warns that in an extreme scenario involving prolonged conflict, prices could spike to $120 to $150 a barrel. For context, the last time oil broke $100 a barrel was after Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, and the national average for gasoline hit an all-time record of $5.02 per gallon that summer. PBS reported today that a longer Iran war pushing oil past $100 would, quote, likely boost inflation, at least temporarily, on top of an economy PBS itself describes as, quote, already unsteady. The timing of this cannot be ignored. This economic shock is arriving while American families are still absorbing elevated costs from tariff escalations earlier this year. Meanwhile, thousands of Americans gathered peacefully in about 40 cities on Monday to protest the military operation, according to the Los Angeles Times. And remember the question we planted at the beginning? Who is this war for? The answer is starting to come into focus because the president's own inner circle is telling us. Here is where we can trace the documented record. Tucker Carlson, former Fox News host, primetime speaker at the 2024 Republican National Convention, and a man who has met with Trump at the White House multiple times, according to ABC News, told ABC News chief Washington correspondent John Karl on Saturday that the attack on Iran is, quote, absolutely disgusting and evil. He added, quote, this is going to shuffle the deck in a profound way. Former Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, once one of Trump's fiercest defenders, wrote on X that, quote, Trump, Vance, Tulsi, and all of us campaigned on no more foreign wars and regime change. She called the administration a, quote, bunch of sick liars, and said, we voted for America first and zero wars. As of today, The Hill reports that Greene has gone even further, publicly questioning the president's, quote, mental state. Conservative influencers Keith and Kevin Hodge, known as the Hodge twins, wrote that Trump has, quote, completely lied to his voters, backstabbed our country, and disgraced his legacy beyond repair. Eric Prince, founder of Blackwater and a Trump donor, told Steve Bannon, quote, I don't see how this is in keeping with the president's MAGA commitment. And the president's response to all of this? In an interview with journalist Rachel Bade, Trump said, quote, I think that MAGA is Trump. MAGA's not the other two, dismissing Carlson and Megyn Kelly. He told the New York Post, quote, I don't care about polling. I have to do the right thing. Meanwhile, Fox News anchor Mark Levin called Carlson a, quote, deranged traitor. This is documented. This is not opinion. The MAGA coalition that delivered Trump the presidency is now publicly at war with itself over a real war. There are three documented explanations circulating for how this happened. First, that the administration genuinely believes Iran posed an imminent nuclear and missile threat requiring preemptive action. Though Al Jazeera, PBS fact-checkers, and multiple outlets note the evidence presented publicly has been limited. Second, that the operation was driven primarily by Israeli strategic priorities, a position held openly by Carlson, who told his audience that Israel is, quote, the only reason the U.S. is pressuring Iran. Third, that domestic political calculations and a desire to project decisive strength overrode the campaign's non-interventionist promises. a theory supported by the New York Times reporting that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu was, quote, determined to end diplomatic negotiations and helped spur Trump's decision. Each explanation is grounded in named sources and documented reporting. Which one you believe will shape how you view American foreign policy for years to come? Here is what we know for certain as of today, March 3, 2026. A president who promised on election night to stop wars has launched the largest U.S. military operation since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. 6 American service members are dead. The Dow has lost over 1,200 points in a single day. Oil is surging toward levels that could push gasoline past $5 a gallon. Only 1 in 4 Americans supports the strikes. Congress is preparing war powers votes this week with a bipartisan coalition of senators, Kaine, Paul, Schumer, and Schiff, pushing to restrain presidential authority. Thousands of protesters have taken to the streets in 40 American cities, and the man who spoke at Trump's own Republican National Convention, Tucker Carlson, has called this operation, quote, absolutely disgusting and evil, while the president responds that he does not care about polling. This is documented. This is not opinion. So here is the question you should be asking your elected representatives today, right now. Did any member of Congress see the classified intelligence justifying this war before it was launched? And if not, why does the Constitution even matter? Here is the debate question I want you to answer in the comments, because there are genuinely multiple valid perspectives. Is this the moment the MAGA coalition permanently fractures, or will this base rally behind the president the way it always has? Tell me what you think. If the Reuters Ipsos number showing only 25% public support holds, we are looking at potentially the most unpopular opening week of a military operation in modern American history. And the economic fallout for your household is the subject of our next deep dive, because the Strait of Hormuz situation is developing by the hour, and its impact on your daily costs is not theoretical. It is already happening. If this video gave you documented facts you were not getting anywhere else, share it with one person who still believes this war will not touch their life. It already has.